will be questions provided by all of you. So, Jen and Trin, please take it away.
All right. Thank you so much to Meetup for having us and hosting such a fabulous and professional event. This has been a blast so far. Been looking forward to it for weeks. So thank you very much.
And
Oh,
extremely good jams leading us
yeah,
in.
also,
So
amazing music in the beginning.
very good,
Loved
very
it.
good.
Thank you for doing that. I'll introduce myself real quick. My name is Jen. My pronouns are she, her, and I work as a freelance communicate. I'm still getting used to saying that. I'm a freelance marketing and communications specialist. I like to say I help companies and brands unbreak their stories. But that's like my professional day job. What I do with Trin on the other hours of the day is we have a podcast and we wrote this book. Before we get into that, Trin, would you like to introduce yourself?
I would love to introduce myself. Thank you, Jen. So I am the Trin half of Friendshipping podcast and book. My pronouns are she and they. I'm a non-binary woman. And if you're confused about that, you can go ahead and Google it. Teen Vogue did a great article about it. And it'll get you all cleared up. I too am a writer. I write games primarily. I'm working on an unannounced card game, and I'm working on 1001 Odysseys, which is a tabletop RPG, which is very pretty. And I'm also working on downloadable content for Max Gentleman Sexy Business, which is a Victorian dating simulator. And I'm very excited to be doing video game work. And Jen, speaking of video games, how did we meet?
Oh yes, we love to start off just so we can. We don't want to come off as experts, or we don't want to come off as people that are cool. And to demonstrate that, we will explain how Trin and I met. Trin and I met at a convention in here in Chicago, and the convention was for comics and video games. And Trin happened to be wearing a very special piece of armor. Trin, you were wearing armor on your shoulder, and it was armor from a character in the video game Mass Effect. If anyone in the chat is familiar with Mass Effect, it was the armor from Legion's character. And I locked eyes with Trin across the room, noticed what she was wearing, and it's like friendship hard shot out of my eyes. We had an instant connection. Started talking. We knew immediately we had something in common, which was why a big part of why we so miss in real life events right now during the pandemic. It's because you're missing that element where you get to be in the same room and notice right away. But anyway, Trin and I met and became friends instantly. I feel very lucky about that. And then soon we started a podcast. We started a podcast called Friendshipping. We had this was 5 years ago now. We had absolutely no intentions of doing it for this long or doing it semi-professionally or anything like that. All we wanted to do was sit in front of a microphone, hang out, and talk about friendship. And the really special part about the podcast is that every week people write in and ask us questions about friendship. They ask us questions like, "Is it okay to unfollow my friend on Twitter?" Or "How do I rekindle a friendship with someone I haven't talked to in 10 years?" Um, so we're kind of going to take that to this show later on. In the last 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to take questions from the audience, and you can ask us questions about friendship, mental health. I would lean a little more friendship. You can ask us things like, is it okay to smooch my friends? How do I give advice to my friends when I think they need it? How do I get better about receiving advice? How do I handle uncomfortable financial situations with friends? You can ask us, how do I apologize? How do I get better about giving apologies? Range of topics. We will do our best to help.
Yeah. And again, like Jen said, we don't say that we are friendship experts. We don't really think that thing actually exists. So many different skills go into being a friend, communication and understanding and knowing yourself and knowing what you want. Obviously, there's a psychology to it. And so it's not that we're experts, is that we really, 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 really care about it. And so that's what kind of brought us here today. And so let's start talking about the main thing I think that's probably on everybody in the world's mind, which is loneliness during COVID. And we know that we've got an international audience today, so not everybody is experiencing this in the same way that we are. So it's going to be a little bit of a lot. We have been getting a question really commonly on our podcast because, like Jen says, we take questions from like the greater internet. They ask us on our show and we answer those. And one that comes up a lot lately is, how can I make a new friend right now? And oh, what an ambitious aspiration you have at the moment, especially if you live in the United States, places that are very locked down. This is something that is really difficult. And I think that the first step, as I take the eyelash out of my eye, the first step is to acknowledge that it is difficult and acknowledge that the process will be slow. It's not impossible. You've done hard things, you've survived difficult things, and we know that because you're here today listening to us. You're alive. So you've done difficult, hard stuff. And if this is something you want to do, you can. But let's make sure you actually want a friend. So the next follow-up question to that usually is it just that you want to have more fun? Because then what you actually want is a camp counselor or somebody who will arrange activities for you. Jenn, what other kinds of people do we find people actually need that aren't friends?
People often think they want friends, but actually, maybe what they need is a counselor or a therapist. I know many people are feeling lonely and isolated right now, but going out and making friends, I know this sounds a little counterintuitive, but that might not solve your problem right away. Sometimes when you think you want friends, you actually just aren't feeling particularly happy. I've certainly been there many times in my life. So yeah, make sure before you start your friendship journey, and we'll get into that, make sure you know what you want. Do you want someone to unload all your problems onto? That's not really a friendship. Do you want someone to just have fun with or make you feel cool and interesting? Well, you are cool and interesting. You already have hobbies. Should you be pursuing your hobbies more than pursuing friendship? That's usually where we say start. First, figure out exactly what you want.
Yeah. And then next, maybe it is you want more human contact and you want it from different humans. And then what we like to say, the first step is look around you. Who are your friends? What are your friends? How are your friends? Where are your friends? All of those questions, because you have people in your life that you love. And maybe you're simply not hearing from those people often enough or in a close way that you want. And that comes down to expressing your needs and boundaries with those friendships. So there's that. And then there's the yes, I want even more friends than that. Yeah, I got 2 super close buddies, but you know what? I'd really love to have 3 or 4 super close buddies. And we always keep that number low because in reality, adults tend to have like maybe 1 to 5 really close, like bros, like people who are like close to you. So if you're looking for more buddies, a great place to start is asking your close friends to start inviting you to stuff. People hold, and we're going to talk about online events later, but there are game nights that your friends are holding. There are group watches of movies that your friends are having, or maybe they're not, and you're the one who has to do the organizing. But what you want is for them to be a connection to your mutual friends. Because, like Jenn said at the beginning, what was great about our meeting was that we had one thing in common right away, which was video games, because we were at a place where people like video games. And you have something in common with your close friends as well, which is that you love the same person, your friend. So I think that that's another good step. And then if we want to go out even further, just go, after you've already let all your friends know you are down to friend, you have talked to their mutual friends, you've done all these things, meet up is a great place to be. And we're so happy to be here because we always suggest going deeper into your hobbies, finding the places where people like the same things that you like, where you have something in common with everybody there. And there's a variety of social media that you can be on. And you have to practice a certain amount of safety with the new people that you meet on social media. But those online friends can be real friends and they can become real friends. So let's talk a bit about making friends on the internet. Jenn, you got anything you want to add on that?
Yeah, there's so many different ways to make friendships. Online friendships can look like people you email with. They can be people you talk with on Twitter. They can be people you meet in this chat. They can be from all over the world. When we advocate for meeting friends online, this is what I think you should do. I think you should pretend for a moment that you're actually not online. Pretend that you are in a big public park where everyone on the internet is there. That can be very fun and also very scary, very dangerous. So what does that mean? If you were in a big public park, you would say hi to someone that you had something in common with. Maybe like I noticed Trin was wearing something from one of my favorite video games, Instant Connection. If you saw someone in the park wearing your favorite band on a t-shirt, you might say hi to them. That's like in the internet world, that would be if you say so, if you see someone talking about your favorite band, you might chime in. That's the same principle. And that means that the behavior that you wouldn't do in a public park, you also shouldn't do online. You know, that means you're not going to follow anyone around from place to place. You're not going to ask questions like, do you have a boyfriend or girlfriend? You're not going to ask, what's your address or where you live? I know this seems obvious, but we like to recap. When in doubt, don't do anything online that you wouldn't also do in person. Oh, you're muted, Trin.
Yeah, sorry, I was changing my name. I had my married name up and not the one that I tend to go by. So call me Trin Garritano. I know you guys saw Trin Pierce for a while, but I'll answer to both. No big deal. So yeah, so I love the metaphor of social media as a public park for a number of reasons. One, because of the reasons that Jen mentioned. That one, yeah, there are people with knives hiding in bushes, sure, and also like you can talk to people who are there. It's a public place, like it's totally safe. But if you are sitting on a park bench and somebody's walking past you and it's a group of 3 people having their own conversation and you just start shouting at them like, hey, I think your ideas are bad. That's not cool. You can do that on the internet. You have the capability of doing it. And you have the capability of doing that in real life, shouting at people who are having a conversation without you. But those rules of etiquette still apply. Yes, we want you to join into conversations. Yes, we want you to talk to new people. But there is a certain line between kind of jamming yourself into somebody else's sphere or conversation and starting a new one. And I think a good way to notice that is, how long has this conversation been going on? How long has this been threaded? This is something that I think is particularly relevant to Twitter. Lots of people have long conversations that are threaded on Twitter. If that conversation is super long, it's probably not for you. Here's another good rule of thumb. Before you respond to anybody on social media who's posted publicly, check and see if your response was already said by somebody else in the thread. It can be really annoying to get the same responses over and over again. And you want to look like the cool, unique, creative person that you are. So that's a good way to make that happen for yourself. And Jen, I would love to talk about our internet friends. Your first internet friends, was that Neopets? Was that Harry Potter online?
Oh yeah, that was I did what you're not supposed to do, which is make friends on the internet when you're like 10 years old.
You shouldn't, but we did.
We didn't. But we did it anyway, and it all worked out because I was happened to be got lucky and was very safe about it. And I'm still in touch with those people today. And sometimes we fall out of touch, and sometimes we go years without talking, and then we pick up again. Actually, Trin, do you want to talk a little bit more about reconnecting with people?
Yes, I do.
Let's talk about what it means to reconnect with an internet friend or a real life friend with someone that you haven't spoken with in, let's say, months or years.
Oh, I actually have a personal anecdote that I can share.
Oh, please.
So I mentioned this person in our book, actually. So again, I'm a nerd and I played World of Warcraft for like 11 years, something like that. World of Warcraft is a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, if you are unfamiliar. So if you have no idea what that is, you probably have an image of what Dungeons and Dragons is. Imagine that, but like, you've got a little avatar and like you're playing an alien. It's a whole thing. And I had a tight-knit group of people that I hung out with, and those are called guilds. And I was particularly close with our main tank, who went by McSprinkles. And I love McSprinkles. And I still call McSprinkles, even though I actually know her real name. And we've kept in touch to this day. And we had a period of time where we didn't talk because neither of us were playing World of Warcraft, but we found each other on social media, which happens, I think, with lots of people. You see your high school friends on Facebook. You come across your coworkers on Twitter, etc. And that's simply what happened to us on Tumblr. And we did. I followed her, and then she followed me back, and then I noticed we're reblogging things from one another. We're both posting like fun, like queer, creative stuff on Tumblr. And I was like, I think we're on the same page still. I think we still have the same vibe. And so from there, I reached out to her privately, and she's the most recent person I sent a copy of the book to. It was a matter of kind of taking the temperature of the room, looking for signs. And this is not something we're going to get in depth into right now, but one of the things we say when you have a crush on a friend or want to get smoochy with a friend is listen to the vibes and the signs that they're giving you. That's true even when friendship is 100% platonic. It is good to kind of keep your ear to the ground. Listen for things like soft no's. Jen, you want to define soft no?
Oh, sure. And a soft no is a signal that you're getting from maybe a stranger, acquaintance, or a friend. And a soft no sounds like, oh, I'm busy, but maybe in the future. Or yeah, that sounds interesting. Maybe some other time. A soft no is a polite way of turning down an invitation. You really have to listen to those, especially if you're Midwestern like Trin and I. We give a lot of soft no's in our life. We give soft no's even when we want to be a hard no. And that's not necessarily fair or good, but it's certainly a habit of mine. A hard no is something, it can be a little awkward. A hard no sounds something more like, I'm not interested in that. No, thank you. Please stop inviting me. Those are, so we're talking about language, literal language, and we could also discuss body language, which is obviously hard to do on the internet. You're absent any body language, so you have to pretend. You have to everything you say to a potential internet friend has to be tempered with the idea that you don't know this person's body language. That means if you ask an innocent question like, "Where are you from? Where do you live?" Which seems so innocent in real life, or certainly can be more innocent in real life. You got to temper that with some safety, on the internet. People might that seems like an innocent question to you, but the other person doesn't really know your intention.
Yeah.
So, Trin, you talked about your friend Mixed Sprinkles, which I love.
Yeah.
What does it sound like? Like, what are some scripts you can use when you're trying to reach out to a friend that you want to reconnect with, or you want to peek in and say hi to? Because we're all lonely right now. We're all isolated. And a piece of advice Trin and I like to give is reach out to the people that are already in your life, the people you haven't thought about in a while, that are still in your orbit. You can bring them in a little closer. So, Trin, let's talk about how to do that.
So when I was getting in touch with McSprinkles, or McSpranks, as I like to abbreviate to, I simply, again, I kind of took stock of posts that we were posting, and oh, I remember what I did. I literally took a post from her Tumblr, and I sent it to her, and I was like, as somebody who is non-binary, I freaking love this. I would love to talk more about this to you, because I already knew. Again, I knew we had something in common. I mean, like, you're not going to continually post on Tumblr about being non-binary if you're not, more than likely. And it was something that we connected on, and it was great. It's always keeping it in your own voice. It's always keeping it to the channels that you already exist on. So McSpranky and I were both on Tumblr. And so that's where we spoke. And I wouldn't have gone looking for boop, boop, boop. Let me find her phone number online or address. There's so many creepy things you can do on the internet, and we don't want you to do any of those things. Just stick to the channels that you already have, because, your internet friend might not want to be internet friends with you back. And it's really kind of you to give them something of an easy out. And while we're talking about what internet friendships look like, one thing that I like to say, because I know there's going to be some people in the chat who are saying, how could online friends be real friends? Dude. I don't know why this is my typing, like, whatever. Nobody types like this. Anyway, consider how many spheres you don't know your friends within. By that, I mean, do you know what your close friends are like in the workplace? Do you know what they're like around their family? You might not. I mean, there may be somebody you know in every single possible sphere. Like, you know exactly what they post on social media. You know their exact relationship with their great grandmother. But more likely than not, you have to do some filling in of the gaps, because the reality is we are ourselves in all of those places. We are a version of ourselves. We are a slice of ourselves. We are whatever is appropriate for that place. And more likely than not, a person is not going to, if they are, genuinely presenting themselves, they are not going to act significantly different on the internet and on social media than they would in real life. So that's why we think that, put some stock into those internet friendships. You know them. And maybe one day you'll meet in real life, and maybe it won't work. Maybe you crossed those streams and it just didn't work out at all. Their smell is just throwing you off or something. I don't know. It's like a hormone thing. That could happen. But the friendship is good in and of itself. Yeah. Jen, anything more about internet friendships we want to say?
Let's see. Just be forgiving to an
Yes.
extent. If you do decide to reconnect with an old friend and they may on the internet and they maybe don't get back to you right away. It's possible they haven't even seen your message. You know, it's possible they are so busy that they can't make time for you. And that's true of that's true of friendships IRL too. So let's talk about let's see what's next on our list. Trin,
Events,
do you want
online events.
event?
Yeah,
Okay,
I do
let's
want to talk about
we,
it.
we've been talking about reconnecting, and I'm going to transition this. I'm ready for it. Okay.
Oh, do it,
So
do
I've been
it. I'm
talking
ready.
and let's say you are feeling in a place, you're feeling lonely, you're feeling like you want more people in your life, you want to meet new people, you are hungry for friendship. That means, unfortunately, you're gonna have to do some legwork. I wish I could. It's not gonna mean upheaving your life or overhauling your personality or anything like that, but it does require some legwork. It requires doing the inviting. It requires doing a little bit of community management, like you saw at the beginning of this call, setting guidelines,
Right,
setting
right,
guidelines.
right.
It requires work, and maybe you don't feel up to doing the work right now, which is okay. But we want to make sure you're up for um, being the glue. You know, you want to be if you want to have a ton of people in a Zoom hangout, you are going to have to do the follow up and the invitation and all the work. So let's talk about that, Trin.
So, the easiest way to get your friends to show up to anything is to say, hey, I'm doing this at this time and this day. Show up or don't, buddy. Actually, don't end it like that. End it like it would really be meaningful to me if you could show up to this. I haven't seen you in forever, and I was just thinking we would all get together and watch Midsummer together and yell at how terrifying everything is. That is a perfectly valid invite. There are so many reasons why people can't or don't show up to things, and we are talking primarily about hanging out online because I mean you're in this chat right now, so you have some understanding of how that works. And there are so many different ways that people can do that, but there are reasons why they don't show. So, reasons like schedules, lack of clarity in the invite. You want to be extremely, extremely clear about exactly what is needed. Lack of instructions, lack of instructions in the invite. And the last one is the invite didn't sound important. We get a lot of questions from people who are like, I ask my friends to hang out all the time and they never do. Are you saying, hey, you want to chill this week? Or are you saying, Tuesday and Thursday evening after about 6 p.m., I could probably do something. What's your schedule like? Be more explicit with that, I would say.
Yeah, and if you are hungry for friendship right now, you have to speak up and say so. Like if you are hosting an event and this event is important to you, you do have to tell your friends like, "Hey, I haven't I haven't hung out with anyone in weeks and weeks and I'm feeling lonely. I'm gonna Is anyone up for a Zoom hangout Saturday at 7 or Sunday at 4?" You see how specific you're being, and you're also making your needs known. When you're saying you need something from your friends, we're hopeful that your friends will hear that and understand. And here's the thing: people still may not show up. They still may cancel. But if you put a little more emphasis on the event, we think your friends will know not to cancel if they can help it. Sharon, let's talk about all the reasons why someone would cancel that have nothing to do with you.
Oh, I'm so tired because I can't stop thinking about all the snow in Texas. Oh my God. I can't go because my cat just threw up 5 times on my rug and I need to pull out my upholstery cleaner and just take care of that. I can't show up because my toddler is throwing up everywhere and I don't really know. It's projectile at this point and I just can't. There are so many valid reasons. And sometimes those reasons happen, and especially parents, I would say, because gosh, when you have a sentient being who's relying on you for every single thing, your time is precious, and everybody's is. But parents have a very specific time suck, and it's their
Yeah, they
kids,
do a really
right?
specific one you can point to and be like, it's that one's fault.
Yeah, that one. Not the older one's really nice. The younger one, I don't know. She's still in her bad years. But there are, and while we're talking on online events, it could also be that your friend doesn't want to do the online thing that you want to do. We recently got a question on our podcast. Friendshippingbook.com also brings you to our podcast, and the question was, my friends, all they want to do is play this online game called Among Us, and it stresses me out and I never want to play it. What can I do? And and that is valid. You don't have to love the thing that your friends are doing. So let's suggest just a few other things that you can do beyond playing. that game is great, by the way. You can go ahead and play it. It's like this lying and deception game with like a video game component. So if you're like internety, that might be great for you. Watch parties, like we mentioned earlier. Watching scary movies is also particularly good for those because there's more participation. Your friends are screaming, or they're like, "Oh, not behind that door!" Like you're obviously gonna die. Things like that are a lot of fun. Book clubs. I know lots of people who are in book clubs. It is not something that I could ever successfully do, but if you can read an entire book in a month and then talk to your friends about it, great option. Lots of community participation opportunities are available. My volunteer experience has been with the Field Museum in Chicago, and people get online and catalog fern samples together, and it's really great. What else can we do? Oh, and just chatting gently at each other while you're doing a solo task. So we used to have knitting circles and quilting circles. You can have any kind of circle. You can get on Zoom and like everybody's playing Animal Crossing on their Switch, or I'm going to get away from video games. I know that people do other things besides that. I have a lot of house plants and I would love to Zoom and garden sometime. You have options. Lots of things can be made to be online. And hey, again, you showed up to a Zoom webinar. So you are like 10 steps ahead of lots of people. Like you absolutely can do this. Go ahead, Jen.
Oh, I was gonna say in a couple weeks I'm going to a friendship show and tell. It's like you have everyone has 2 minutes to explain something fun in their house. I've also heard of a friend group doing a mini talent show where someone was like playing the piano and someone else was like um, doing push-ups or something silly. So there are a lot of things that you can do to reconnect with and maintain friendships right now. But like we said, they do require a little bit of organization. And keep in mind that you will. Oh, I just thought of another one. There's a virtual wine tasting. I'm doing this. I know. It sounds amazing.
Are you gonna like actually spit it out, or are you just gonna just drink
Oh,
wine?
I'm always gonna drink it. Yeah,
I was
I
gonna say, like,
I'm using a spit bucket in my own home. No way.
I love it. Wait, so let's talk also about tech with events. So this is funny because so in a previous life, when we had events, I was an events manager. I also wrote, but like I managed events, and now those don't exist. But a lot of the same principles can be applied to online events. Some basic things like send a calendar event if your friends all use Google Calendar, or if all your friends use Facebook, do a Facebook event page. Something centralized where everybody is, or a simple email chain or a simple text chain. That's a great way to keep everybody on the same page and have a centralized location where people can ask you questions about the event. One thing that I learned from an intense error was make sure you know what you're doing. So my example is one of my dearest friends, Carlin, suggested, "Hey, you know what I love doing? I love playing the Jackbox Party Pack games. It's a set of video games that are like very user friendly, very based on you making jokes and stuff. It's great." And so we got together for the game, and Carlin said, "Great, start running the game." And I was like, "You don't own it?" And she was like, "Oh my God, I just realized I've only ever played other people's copies of this
Oh,
game."
that's so funny.
Right. So like so a half hour later, I've downloaded this game. I've got my, always use your headphones. Oh my gosh, headphones are key. And then we're playing. It's like it is really a good idea. I hesitate to say you have to, because I think your friends are probably pretty forgiving, but it would behoove you to do a little bit of tech work before the actual event occurs, I would
That's
say.
so funny, Trin. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, yeah. You didn't one of those things you don't even think about. Oh, I love that. Um, so we have about 10 to 15 minutes before we do our Q&A. Should we talk about friendships that maybe aren't working out so well?
Yeah, I love talking about that, Jen, because I think people pick up our beautiful, okay, our beautiful book, Art by Jean Way, and it says friendshipping, and that's the gerund of friendship, which is a verb now, and they don't assume that we will ever say, "Stop being friends with that person."
Wrong. We totally will.
You don't have to be friends with Bo Diddley. I don't know how much we can swear on here, so I keep on just saying like random things. You don't have to be friends with anyone. If your friend starts feeling like the part-time job that you dread, that's a really bad sign. Jen, what are some other signs that a friend is bootable?
Yes. So I think you should have high standards for friends. And something I've learned throughout my life, and I've learned from some people that I consider mentors, is that it is okay to be selective about the people you let in your life. You don't get to pick your coworkers or your boss, or you don't get to pick your family who you share actual blood with, but you do get to, for the most part, you do get to decide who you spend your free time with. So be very selective. And that means having friends that bring you joy and comfort. Friendship can be sustenance, it can be protection. Friends can show you things about the world and experiences that you'll never have yourself. So yes, we are totally advocating for people that bring to cut people from your life that bring you more dread and anxiety than joy and happiness.
Right. And then how do you do that? So I'm going to say something that is extremely controversial.
Yes.
I'm going to say something that might make you angry. If somebody is hurting you, ghost, get out of there,
Get out
drop
of
them.
You can leave them behind. We know ghosting is a hot topic. People hate being ghosted upon, and of course, it hurts. But if you are being harmed, you can block that person from your phone. You can block their email. You don't have to be in contact ever again with people that are harming and bullying you.
Yeah, toxic people go right in the dumpster, and I think that that is pretty universal. So, what if you want to break up with a friend, and you feel like, oh, I don't know if I can ghost them. That seems so rude. Consider what the alternative is. The alternative is an extremely awkward conversation. That are you going to have answers for that? Nobody wants to be sat down and told, I don't want to be friends with you because of your bad personality. Like, what are you going to say? What are you going to say?
You have to then defend yourself. Like, if you need to be cut off from someone, you shouldn't have to give explanations, because then you're kind of giving that person a chance to wiggle their way back in your life, and that's the opposite of what you want, you know. So if you think you can have a productive breakup conversation, we're not going to tell you not to do that, but we want you to be really firm about what you need.
Yeah, I've had 3 friendship breakup conversations in my lifetime, and they all happened before I turned 30, because after 30, you start giving less of a dink. And every single one of those conversations, what went poorly, and only one of them was worth it. And the one that was worth it was because the dude was just so bad that it was like, I just, no, I am going to sit you down and tell you that you have messed up just repeatedly, and I don't ever want to talk to you again. So peace. But the other times, like it was hurtful. It was hard. It was long. It was a series of questions without answers, and it is very difficult to prepare for that. It is difficult to be in either side of that conversation. And I'm never going to say don't have a breakup conversation. If you want to do that, especially if you think that the friendship can be saved, then do it. But go in it knowing that it is hard to be productive. And if you want to be productive, start with questions. You want to start with the information gathering phase. So, why did this happen? Maybe there was a specific event that hurt you. Can you please give me an apology? Giving them an opportunity to say they're sorry is a wonderful thing. But you also have to bear in mind that you can't control their reaction. So, say what you want to say and accept that it could be rough. Again, you've done difficult stuff. You're alive today. So if you want to do this difficult thing, I salute you.
Yeah, I mean, just remember that unreasonable people can't be reasoned with. So don't give them reasons. When in doubt, when you're having difficult friendship conversations, I always say, this is something I learned from a counselor actually, and it sounds cheesy, but I found it to be so helpful. Use I statements. I
Yes.
statements start with the word I. I feel hurt. I feel like you're not listening to me. I don't feel heard. People can't argue with your feelings because they're yours, or at least people shouldn't argue with their feelings because they're yours.
Like some dinguses will argue with your feelings, but like they're not worth keeping around. So we're talking a lot about our friends messing up. Let's talk about what happens when your friend is messing up and making a terrible choice. My favorite example of this, and the one that I think we get the most questions about in general, is I hate who my friend is dating.
So
Jen,
common.
you want to start us off with that? Because I love your story from college about that.
Oh yeah. So there's a lot of ways you can broach or decide not to broach this topic with your friend. you might have the kind of relationship where you can be totally open. In college, I had a roommate who was dating someone who we all agreed was awful. Even at the time, we all agreed, and we would say things like, "Hey, when after he leave, every time he comes over and after he leaves, you're miserable." And she'd be like, "I know, and I'm still gonna invite him over." And we'd be like, "Okay, well, there's that. At least we said our piece." That was an open, honest conversation that our specific relationship allowed for. It's not usually that easy.
Right.
Asking someone to defend the person they're dating is a big ask. You can do it, it can be done, and sometimes it's absolutely worth doing, but you really have to make sure you have to do your homework first. You have to do a lot of mental homework, which isn't fun to do.
And there's also the homework of, I mean, deciding whether or not to step in on your friend's bad choice is like step 8, okay? Step
Yeah.
0 to 1 to 2 is, again, information gathering. Do you know that much about this person's partner? People love to complain about their partner to their friends because, oh gosh, we have to vent sometimes, and that is totally natural and okay. But we're less likely to go to our friends and be like, I gotta tell you, he cleaned the bathroom today, and it's usually my chore, but oh my God, isn't that so sweet? Like, we don't do that. I mean, it just seems like a sillier thing to do. So you probably don't have all the information. And you got to consider the narrowness of your perspective. Everybody is the protagonist of the story in their own minds. Everybody has the most information about their own situation. So go in and ask, what do you like about this random name, Dennis? Dennis. I hope there's no Dennises in the crowd. So tell me about how you and Dennis met. What are your shared values? Tell me the last really nice thing that Dennis did for you. Questions like that, of course, in your own language and said in a way that doesn't feel awkward to you. That's really important before you step in and say, Dennis is no good, and we're not friends until he leaves.
True.
It's a
And
big step.
of course, Trin and I are talking right now about situations where abuse or harm isn't involved.
Right.
Of course, in those cases, you should seek professionals to help you with that. There are hotlines for people that are close to the situation, and they can use those resources to get help. We're talking more about the more mundane situations where you just don't like the person your friend is dating, and they're rubbing you the wrong way. And I like what you said, Trin, about do some information gathering. Ask, how long have you been together? Is it serious? And you can down the line say what you feel and what you can share your opinion. Friends do share opinions with one another, even when they disagree. We just want you to be careful about it. And you want to make sure that you are on your friend's team. You're not rooting for them to break up to make your life easier, right? Make
Oh
sure,
boy.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
make sure
That's
you,
a good point.
yeah, make sure you want the best for your friend. And it's okay to have selfish impulses. Everyone is selfish,
Yeah.
to some degree. That's just how it works. But make sure you really are on your friend's team before you think about approaching this topic.
I agree. Jen, we got like 4 minutes before the Q&A, right?
Yes, exactly.
So what if we cram in those 4 minutes? Let's talk about when your friends unfollow you on social media. That's another topic that is super big for us.
Yes,
Um,
another
so
controversial one.
it's so controversial. And so this is how controversial it is. There was a very well written Salon article recently that I read. It was by somebody who described themselves as a friendship reporter. And I'm so sorry. I wish I had the title of, you could just probably Google Salon and friendship breakups. And I was reading this article, and this woman had mentioned that a friend of hers had unsubscribed from her newsletter. And so she decided to call the friend and talk to the friend about it. And it turned out well for them because it started a conversation that was very productive. But from the outside of that, my God, that is not a choice I ever would make. Because when somebody unsubscribes from your newsletter or unfollows you on Twitter, they are just opting out of a very narrow, small part of what you're doing. It's not who you are. It's just maybe they don't want to see all the pictures of your lunch that you post on Instagram. It's not a wholesale rejection of you.
Yes, yes. We really believe let people unfollow you. Let people manage the way they communicate with you. And it really is not a full rejection of your personality if someone unfollows you or unsubscribes or mutes you. Trin and I are very pro muting your friends, even your close friends. If they are posting things you don't want to see or that upset you, or that things that invoke jealousy. A
Or
couple
spoilers for WandaVision.
That's such a good reason to mute someone.
God.
I muted a friend who was vacationing. This was a couple years ago. It was December, and I was in Chicago, and they were vacationing in Hawaii, and I wanted them to have the best time ever. But I also didn't want to see photos of it. Not
Love it.
then, okay? Not when I'm depressed in December in Chicago. I will look at your photos when it's a little warmer outside. So there's all kinds of totally benign and reasonable reasons why someone would mute you on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, and let people do that. Let people do that without much argument. It is such an awkward question to say, "Why did you unfollow me on Twitter?" Oh, what kind of conversation would that inspire?
It'd be rough. And I completely understand why it is hurtful when somebody unfollows you. We're not saying that it doesn't completely suck. It does, especially if you notice that it was somebody who you respect or somebody that you were close to who like opted out of your TikTok or your Twitter or etc. It does hurt. But remember that there are like dozens of hamsters on TikTok who have millions of more followers than you do. The number doesn't matter. The number is not an actual quantifying of your value. And it's really a difficult thing to let go of in the age of we have followers on freaking everything. We have followers on LinkedIn. It's like, can't I escape this clout situation on LinkedIn where I'm looking for work? Like, what is that about? Anyway.
Seriously. All right. Do you think we should do the Q&A?
Oh yes. Is Cindy coming back to mod that, or do we have to like dig through stuff?
Oh, I hope so. Sydney, we need you.
Cindy, help.
Hi, Sydney.
Hey, y'all. Firstly, that was so great. I loved all the suggestions y'all suggested on how to find ways to stay in touch. Especially for me and my friend group, we've been playing way too much Among Us. So I'm definitely going to try the new methods y'all have said. But before we get started on Q&A, I wanted to share that Friendshipping Publishers Workmen are offering a 20% discount with the code FRIENDS for US only. We'll post it on the chat. Please get it. I've been reading it and it's been helping me so much. Like, truly highly recommend. Also, we'll be doing a giveaway of the book. We'll be giving some free books out tomorrow. In order to get access to that information, please follow Meetup's Instagram account. So now we're going to go ahead and get started with Q&A. I'm going to apologize in case I mispronounce anyone's names. The first question we have here is from Jira. How does one make meaningful connections as an introvert?
Ooh.
Oh my gosh, you came to the right place. Jen and I are hard introverts.
Trin is
Oh
the most
man.
introverted person I know, and also like the best friend I know. So
Oh.
totally the right person to answer this.
Thank you. I will. Yeah, I'm a hard introvert. Like after we do events like this, I basically need to sit in a dark room alone for about 48 hours to recharge. I'm reading sad poetry. And that is what I'll be doing at 3 p.m. Central Time. But but right now, I think one of the main balances that I need to find is my energy to the energy that I give to my friends. And right now, I have to have a real like list in my head of how I'm prioritizing my energy. So I have a couple friends who are going through a rough time right now, and I make sure that I prioritize checking in with them. And like when Jen and I, like we always can check in with one another because we're constantly working together. And so like that's a relationship that I can be like, yeah, I'm gonna talk to Jen on Thursday because we always do. But I have an alarm in my phone, 8:15 p.m. If I haven't talked to this or this person, I need to text them because as an introvert, I don't think about text messages as being these little gifts, these little packets of friendship that you're sending your friends. It's actually really meaningful. It is really meaningful when you reach out. It is meaningful when you show up to your friends' events. Online events are also very meaningful. And as an introvert, it's hard to remember that because we don't need it. We don't need the energy that one can derive from being around a lot of people. So I think it's having this understanding of your friends' needs, but also an understanding of how much energy you have available and how much you can give, and tempering your expectations from there. So I hope that is helpful. Online is also really good, having online friendships.
I picture my energy like a cup of water, and sometimes activities mean fill me up and pour more water in, and sometimes activities absolutely drain my cup. So and another thing I've learned about handling my introvertedness is tell your friends when you're feeling introverted. They will understand. I'm almost positive. You can say the words, "I'm too introverted tonight to hang out. Love you. Talk to you soon." They will get it. Sometimes you just got to say it.
I once sent a friend to my text. Sent a friend to my text. Yeah, sure. I once sent a text to my friend Savannah that was like, "Hey, I just wanted to tell you I like you. I don't have the energy for a conversation right now. Here's a picture of one of my plants." And it went over really well because it is a reminder that Savannah's on my mind. And I am I going to have a phone call right now? No, not with anybody, not with Beyonce, not with the Pope. Like I don't know. So, so I meet out my energy in that regard. Cool.
As an introvert, I could definitely relate. Joanne wants to ask, how do I address a friend who hasn't been pulling their weight in our friendship? For instance, they spend a lot of time talking about themselves or isn't great at following up, etc.
This is a tough one because this is a pandemic era question. Uh,
Right.
Trin and I feel pretty strongly that right now you do have to be extra patient and understanding when your friends feel or seem unavailable or a little bit out of it because people are grieving. They're grieving losses right now, like literally and figuratively. So, that said, you are so not wrong to want more from a friendship. You deserve friends who make time for you. You deserve friends that make you feel loved, and it sounds like this isn't the case right now. So let's talk about some solutions and maybe some scripts, Trin.
Yeah, let's do that. Again, this is a needs and boundaries situation. So you need something a little bit more from your friends, and it's okay to ask for more. I think be gentle about it, and again, temper those expectations because pandemic. But saying things like, "Hey, I miss you, and I would just love to if you find a funny meme on the internet and it reminds you of me, can you send it to me?" The other day, I saw this amazing video of a can of ravioli in lava, and it reminded me of you, and I texted to you. So, like, if we could do that back and forth, that'd be great. One of those things I think would be helpful. Also, ask questions. Actually, what I said about the ravioli can is probably like step two, and step 0 or 1 is your friend going through a really particularly hard time? Do they need a therapist? If they're unloading on you a lot, it may be because you are the closest person who loves them, whose opinion they trust to talk about these things. And it is not your job to be the plumber for their mind. That is for a paid professional. But that is when we have this kind of loose social safety net, we often turn to our friends for things they can't give, particularly in times of global crisis. So I'd say ask some questions, state some needs, some doable things, and then even go back to what we talked about earlier about online events. A movie night with a buddy probably sounds pretty good, right? Say, hey, I'm free on Thursday or Friday after 7 p.m. Pacific. And if you want to, I would love to get together and talk about absolutely all fun things. Let's do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, certainly friends unload on each other, friends bear each other's burdens in life. But you are not a therapist unless you are a therapist. But even then, you are not this person's specific therapist. So if they might be asking for something that you, for whatever reason, can't give, and that's okay. Your friendship can certainly survive that. But just something, yeah, something to think about. Thank you. That was a really good question.
Really, all these questions have been good. Thank you for everybody. And I'm sorry I keep on hitting my desk and it looks like I'm in an earthquake. I promise you, everything is very stable over here.
Sure, Trin. We can do another one. I think we have time for a couple more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our next question here is from Anonymous. It's a two-parter. How do you make friends when you move a lot? And how do you maintain friendships when you move?
Ooh, so this is a long distance friendship question, which you are in good company because everyone in the United States is kind of in a long distance friendship right now, even with people that are close to you. So my advice for maintaining friendships with people that are in different places, different cities, towns, states, is to find the most low pressure way to keep in touch.
Yes.
You may be tempted to be like every Sunday we will get on a call and gab or send me an update every time you go on a date. That's kind of a lot to ask. You might get burnt out of talking on the phone or texting. So don't put too much pressure on yourself to respond, to be extremely responsive or talkative. Give yourself and your friend a little space to let the distance in. And that doesn't mean your friendship is any less important or that you're any less important. It just means go easy on yourself if you don't feel like connecting with them every single time that they call you or text you. You know, like you still do have a very vivid and busy life, and so do they.
I love sending pictures and short videos to long distance friends. And again, Jen, like all my friends are long distance. Yes. And again, like the plant pictures, I'm a plant nerd. I have a ton of plants. So sometimes I'll send like glow up pictures of my terrariums. And my friends love those. But what I ask for in return is like, one of my buddies has 4 kids that all look exactly like his wife, and I love them. And it's like, hey, what are the 4, let's pretend her name is Vicky. What are the 4 Vickies doing today? You know, ask questions, specific questions that can give you
Right.
a little bit of insight from their life. I think what we lose when we're long distance is we tend to kind of check out of the details, but you know the details of your friends' lives. Ask them like, oh, hey, did you like that book? I remember you were talking about that book you were reading before. Just remind them that you have stuff in common and you have things to talk about. And yeah, Jen, I love the advice of like, don't set yourself up for disappointment. When we say let's have a Zoom call every Saturday night, lots of things happen on Saturdays. I don't know if you guys knew this, but news doesn't stop on Saturdays. Weird stuff happens on
Yeah.
Saturdays.
Yeah. So be kind if they need to bail or cancel, you know,
Right.
just as you would want the same treatment. Yeah, Trin, that's a really good point. The news happens every day and it's usually bad.
And moving a lot is in itself so hard. And I just want to send some love out to that asker because, like, I'm moving right now. I'm in the process of moving from Chicago to Texas, and just like getting rid of your stuff and like dealing with movers. It's this giant chunk of stress in your life that you're also dealing with while you're trying to keep in touch with your friends. It may be worthwhile to say, hey, I am going to have a little lack of energy over the next month, and I would love it if you could check in a little more often with me. I'm just saying this because I love you and I want to hear from you. And while I'm moving, it's hard for me to keep that as a priority. And I love you. You know, I notice I said I love you like 8 times. Like, put that in there.
I love it.
I love that advice about long distance friendships. I guess I just wanted to hear a little bit more also too, like when you're moving, what methods do you think would be best to like find new friends?
But like,
So oh, Jen, you go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, just like if when you're in a new place,
Yeah, like what would you say to anonymous on like how to meet new people and when you're constantly moving?
I would say use your words and tell anyone you know that lives in that city that you're down to friend. That means kind of, but not really inviting yourself to things. You're not going to invite yourself to a private dinner party or something, but you are going to say things like, "Hey, I'm new here. I'm looking for hangouts. I'm looking for board game nights or book clubs. Or hey, introduce me to your friends. I'm sure you're awesome, so I'm sure they're awesome." Like it means you do have to you have to use your words to say what to get what you want.
We give this advice, but we know that Reddit can be shady as all hell, as any internet website can be shady as all hell. But Reddit has like city specific pages.
Yeah.
I know that there's like a Chicago Reddit, and we're not saying go and like make friends on Reddit because I don't know if you should do that, but you will know more about the city you're going to. And there will be posts about like, free events or like the museum is doing this thing online. That's a good way to get a line in. One thing that I have on my to-do list that I haven't done for my move to Texas is I want to subscribe to a local newspaper that goes out of Dallas, because then I have a better sense of what the hell is happening in that city because I've never been, and we have our local publication, Block Club Chicago, is fantastic and runs information about events and volunteer opportunities, and that's what I'm looking for Texas. So I would say when you're moving, do some groundwork of getting to know even just the city itself.
Yeah, make that your hobby and you will for sure run into people that way.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think we have time for one more question, and it's
Yeah.
from Tess. Tess wants to know, how do you make friends when all your friends are married and have kids and you're single?
Trin and I are married, not to each other.
Is
Almost.
we're like each other's other half, but like not, but in a very platonic way.
Yeah,
But yes, we are married
platonic
people.
married. But yeah, I mean, this is absolutely a realistic. This is a great question. It's. I hope we can provide some practical advice, but I want you to know that you are not alone. One of my best friends is unmarried, and she said before, it's hard being the single person in the friend group because your schedule's different, your needs are different, your priorities are different. Neither one is better. I want to be very clear about that. Sometimes I'm jealous of the fact that she gets way more alone time than I do. But
Yeah.
like that's I just want to make it clear, like this is a very common adult question.
Yeah, I have friends with kids, so I think I'm going to kind of relay that. So I know what it's like to have kids on a very baseline level. I don't fully grok that. I don't fully. I'll never know what it's like again to have a tiny, vulnerable, sentient being that is reliant on me. That is a very specific experience. But I can have a lot of empathy for the lack of time that a friend with kids might have. The thing about marriage is like we do it because we want it to be forever, you know, usually, and your friend hopefully will be happily married for a long time, and throughout that time they will learn how to better balance themselves and their friendships, because we get questions from married people all the time who are like, how do I get back in touch with my friends? Like I moved to a new place with my husband and I miss my buddies. Knowing that your priorities and energy levels are different, I think is really helpful. And specifically for people who have kids, not necessarily with people in relationships, I think taking on the task of being the organizer and the scheduler is very helpful. And that's not something anybody wants to hear. It's like, you should do a little bit of work maybe. That sucks. Nobody wants to do that. But if you want to see your friends, you may have to make that first move.
It's also okay to have preferences if you go out and start to meet new friends after the pandemic or during it if it's online. You can say to yourself, I need some friends that are single. That is so reasonable. I
Oh
think
yeah.
it's totally okay to be like, I need to vary my friend group a little bit. You can have that goal in mind. I think that's totally okay.
No, that makes total sense. Okay, thank you all for joining us
You
today. Thank you so much to Jen and Trin for your time and sharing all this valuable insight with us. I know I learned a lot today. Before we go, I'd also like to share these two last slides. One of the best ways to make new friends is to find people who share your interests. So we're offering a 50% discount for your first subscription as a meetup organizer. And to find out more, go to meetupsavings.com. We're also going to share, next slide, please, that you can now learn more about our podcast, Keep Connected, with Meetup CEO David Siegel. It was launched early this year, and you can take your phones out and take your camera out and then scan the QR code, and you'll be able to get linked into the podcast and check out the episodes. And again, please check out Friendshipping. This book is really fun. It has really awesome graphics, and Jen and Trin are just amazing human beings. Thank you so much for joining our talk today, and I hope everyone stays safe and well. Bye, everyone.
Take care. Thank you.